Welcome to the Misfit Squad podcast,
where we invite you to embrace your difference and to discover a spectrum of possibilities and change what's wrong about you into what is strong about you.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's show. It's February, and in honor of that month and Valentine's Day, we're going to be spending the month talking about relationships. Today, specifically, we're going to talk about the 5 elements to have an amazing relationship. There are 5 components of having a great relationship: allowance, honor, trust, gratitude, and vulnerability. These components play together to create intimacy not only with others, but with yourself. Are you willing to have a greater connection to yourself, others, and everything surrounding you? Let's find out. All right, Trina, tell us what allowance is.
Okay. Well, really, in my point of view, I would say allowance basically underlies all of those. You actually have to have allowance to have the other components. So allowance is really about looking at everything as just an interesting point of view, which means it's about agreeing with someone or something, or resisting or reacting to it, or defending for or against it. Because a lot of times we're taught that even when somebody says something, we have to align or agree or resist or react. Something as simple as, wow, I look really crappy today. If your friend says that to you, you're most likely going to be like, no, you don't, which is actually resisting or reacting to it, versus being in the allowance of be like, what would make you say that? So allowance is actually being what we call interesting point of view. It's where you can be the space of everything without having, like I said, to resist or react to it. And allowance gives you the willingness to be with anybody, to be around other things with maybe you don't agree with their choices or their decisions or their actions, but allows you to be in the space of that. So allowance is basically really a key factor. And a lot of times when we go throughout our days, we'll be like, feel crunchy, or we're going spaces where it's just like havoc and chaos. Those are the times to actually be in the awareness of like, okay, if I was an allowance here, if I wasn't resisting anything that was going on, what could I be? So do you have anything you would like to add to that, Kim?
I mean, basically another way to talk about it is allowance is essentially like not being in judgment, right? Allowing people to be where they are, not judging people, not judging people's choices. I think it's interesting too, because I think that alignment and agreement and resistance and reaction it's a really easy trap to fall into, because it's basically the basis for how we move conversations forward. Right? You're in a conversation and you're supposed to be like, oh, I get it, or oh no, that's horrible, or you know what I mean? Like, so it's about being judgment, and for me, willing to be quiet.
Yeah. And really it is, like you said, it is the absence of judgment. But as well as what you said, there's so much that we have based our connection with somebody on through judgment.
Yeah.
So it's when you can just be, wow, that's interesting. That's an interesting choice. That's when you actually can totally be you as well, because it's a power of allowance, allows you to show up a space of you without that judgment.
Yeah. All right. So we can't take forever. We're never going to finish this podcast. So number 2, which you can't see because I look sort of like an alien with my funny background. Anyways, number 2, honor.
So number 2 is honor. Honor is basically to treat someone with regard, with respect, basically without judgment. Um, it's it's the willingness to honor them for who they are and how they show up, regardless of how you want them to be or you want them to show up. Like you can't go honoring is not, all right, I'm going to teach them to roll the toothpaste up correctly so the paste is all top, when somebody comes in and just squishes the paste right in the middle. To honor is to know that they're always going to squish the paste in the middle, no matter how many times you tell them, or they're always going to put the toilet seat, leave it up, no matter if you tell them. That's honoring, because you're like, okay, this is who they are, not who I want them to be or I expect them to be.
Right. Well, I have a couple of other examples too. So like, to go along with what you're saying, like, you know, I was having a conversation with a friend who, you know, has kids, and I was, you know, saying like, what I really want to do for the kids that I know in my life is support them in being who they are, whoever they're choosing to be, whether I think it's what they should be or shouldn't be or whatever. And so that's another kind of honoring. And it's also allowance and not being in judgment. It's all of those things, right? And then the other thing, it is honoring. To the toothpaste example, so funny because it makes me want to punch people when they squeeze the toothpaste the wrong way. But
hence why I said it.
I know. But another way to honor is to actually be curious about what, like, knowing that pushes my buttons. If I had a partner, and a way to honor me would also be to know that it bothers me and then do it differently. You know,
or to
for
have
example,
two separate toothpaste.
exactly, that would be another way. I mean, what is on me? I had a boyfriend many years ago who really couldn't deal if the toilet paper came down the bottom. It had to come over the top.
Yes.
And I never even paid any attention. And he went through this whole thing to show me about how the toilet paper needed to go. So I was like, and I just remember in the movie, like, wow, this is really important to him. So I'm going to take an extra second and flip the toilet paper the way he wants it. It's a silly example, right? But like, but I want to point, the thing is that when we're talking about relationships, if you can honor in those little tiny, seemingly insignificant ways, actually makes a really big difference. And it costs you very little and is usually very easy.
Yeah. Because then it allows almost what is the next element to show up, which is trust.
Yep.
Because when you are willing to honor somebody, like even in those small things, then trust shows up. And trust is, well, it's kind of a little bit of what we were talking about too, but it's like knowing that the person is going to do what they're going to do, no matter how much you hope, no matter how much you believe, no matter how much you fantasize or wish what they would do. Like what we have been taught is trust is blind faith. But trust is not blind faith. Trust is knowing that, hey, you know, as an example, if I have a friend who loves to go out and party or loves to drink, that they're always going to drink. That if I go out with them, they're going to be drinking. That's actually trusting and knowing of how they're going to show up. So if you trust that they will choose to do what they're going to do, your awareness will serve you like in the future, because you will know like almost how to, I don't want to say how to be in that situation, but it will give you the information that's required if you are willing to trust.
Yeah, and another great example is we all know this person. They're always late. No matter what, you know this person is going to be late. And so,
yes,
knowing that, trusting that they're going to be late gives you the awareness and the knowing that comes with, that kind, trust from that perspective gives you a lot of space and freedom. Because that's another one of the things I used to feel like epically disrespected by people who were late. Because I value my time. I'm a very busy person. I have 8 million things going on at all times. And when I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm like there. I'm not late. If I'm late, something is wrong, you know? And so it used to cause a lot of like upset for me personally. It caused a lot of upset and turmoil. And when I was willing to just be like, oh, when I was willing to just trust that this person, this is just what they're going to do, this is just how they're it allowed me to choose differently so that it would work for me. And then I didn't have all the upset, and I didn't have all the like disrespect. I didn't experience all the disrespect because I just chose then, and it just, I don't know why, but it just gave me the space to choose in a way that worked for me. And then I wasn't upset about it. You know, I just would schedule things in such a way that like, I'm like, okay, well, anyway, so that's just another example. I think it really gives you more ease.
Yeah, and and the other thing in relationship, it's actually, for as an example, another one would be like, if you expect that just because you're like with a male, that they're going to be able to fix your car, or they're going to change your oil, or they're going to take care of those things, or if you're with a female or vice versa, whoever, that the ones who are always going to cook the dinners and do the dishes. That's like, if that's something they enjoy and love doing and they're good at doing, that's different. But not if you go in with the expectation of that, then you're not allowing them to show up as who they are. So trust that, hey, I'm with this person and I know that they're not going to fix my car. In order to have a relationship with them, I'm going to have to go to a mechanic.
Right, because otherwise your other option is to be upset and constantly trying to get them to be the person who can fix your car or do your laundry or take out the trash or
Exactly.
right? So far we've done allowance, honor, and trust. What's next?
We have gratitude, which is one of my favorites. Gratitude is basically the place where allowance and judgment does not exist, because it's exclusive of that. You cannot be grateful and have judgment at the same time. So gratitude, like for instance, love, you can tell somebody you're so grateful for them, but you can tell somebody you love them. And love has so many different definitions based on the person that you are saying that to, and what their point of view is, what love is, and how they receive love. It brings up a whole lot, versus if you actually are, I'm just so grateful for you. I totally adore you. I'm so grateful. That's a completely different energy.
Isn't that really funny? How love has like a gazillion meanings and definitions, and every single person who says it or hears it has a different meaning. But gratitude, everybody is clear about what gratitude is. Mm-hmm. It pretty much means the same thing to everybody in any language, anywhere. Yes. That's funny to me.
Yeah. So basically, it's also having gratitude for yourself, because when you have gratitude for you, you get out of judgment of yourself. So instead of looking in the mirror in the morning of everything that's wrong with you or everything that you don't like about yourself, what if you could actually turn that around and choose to be grateful, and like maybe list like 5 things, like I'm so grateful that I have big eyes. I'm so grateful that I have all my teeth. I'm so grateful that I have dentures, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But gratitude really is the space of no judgment and yes, being an allowance. So it includes all the components that we've already talked about.
And it's easy, like it's easy to sort of be like, okay, like really in almost any situation and almost with any person, even someone who like makes me insane, who I would say like, I hate that person or I don't like that person. Like, even those people, if you take a beat, you can find like, okay, what am I grateful about with this person? And that might be that they did this, so now I know this. Even though it's a crappy thing, right? It doesn't have to be like, you can still be grateful for that. So it's easy in every scenario to be like, okay, this is effed up. And what piece of this can I be grateful for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you can be grateful for somebody showing their true colors, even though you thought differently or would like them to be different, but having gratitude for them showing up for how they're showing up. One thing that you could do for the new year, since we're in February and still into the beginning of the new year, is you could make a list of like 50 things that you're grateful for about yourself, about your life, about maybe where you live, your business, whatever it may be. Write that list of gratitude out and see how much that actually contributes to you.
And I'm going to say 50 is a lot. So if you're like me, do 5.
It's just
50 is a big long list, Trina. You're crazy.
5 plus a 0.
Or do 5, and then maybe next week do like 5 more. Eventually you'll hit the 50.
It doesn't matter how many you do. Just be grateful.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, to be honest, people, sometimes I'm grateful that like I spend many hours on my feet walking through basically beach deep sand, moving 1,000-pound animals around. So I'm sore a lot. My feet are sore, my body is sore. So many days I'm grateful I'm not so sore today.
There you go.
Doesn't have to be a big thing, I'm grateful that my husband did the grocery shopping. Like, and especially in those moments when you're having like upset, particularly in relationship, right? We get mad at people and it's just like, like,
right.
Okay, this person is being horrible, upsetting, whatever. What are you grateful for? What am I grateful for? There's still always something. If you're in relationship with someone, in a relationship that you're continually participating in and carrying on, there are things that you're grateful for. And stopping and pausing to ask what those are and just choosing a simple one.
Yep.
Really make a big difference. And really, it's kind of funny that we don't start with gratitude, because often actually the easiest path into allowance, honor, and trust is through gratitude. If you're willing to have a moment where you're grateful for something, then the other things flow out of that.
Yes.
Because as you said, judgment doesn't exist in the space of gratitude. Yeah. It's impossible. So, yeah. Okay. So we have one more intimate element of intimacy, that is
to have a greater relationship.
Yep.
And that is vulnerability. And vulnerability has a bad rap because it's not about becoming a doormat. It's actually the willingness to show up, warts and all, with having no barriers, like no protection, no rightness, no wrongness. It's just the ability to be, what I would say is to completely encompass and be able to perceive, to know, to receive all energies at all times. And it does take a lot of courage and it takes a lot of presence to be able to do that. It's really about being undefended, like not defending anything.
Right. So in terms of relationship, and what do we hear people talk all the time, it's still really a buzzword these days, as we talk about, because you mentioned like people do, if you asked almost anybody on the street, what do you think vulnerability means? They're going to tell you it means being like a doormat or letting people do whatever they want. But
a lot of times it means like being weak, unprotected, you're going to get hurt. Yeah.
Right, right. But really, it's about another way to use others speak about it is to be willing to be who you are, to know what you know, and to vocalize that when necessary. So setting a boundary, right? So it's not being a doormat. So just because someone is doing something, the willingness to, sorry, I'm having a hard time getting the words out. Someone said to me one time, I was in this group program and we were going around at the end and looking at everybody in the eye and saying something that we really like admired about that person. And this one lady, she was like, she said to me, she's like, I really admire how you know what works for you and you're willing to say that and
That's
ask
awesome.
for that, right?
That's awesome.
And that's, at the time, I didn't even really realize that about myself. But that's an example of having a clear boundary. It's also an example of being vulnerable. I know what works for me. I know what doesn't work for me. And I am willing to let people know that.
Well, that's what vulnerability is. It's the willingness to actually to reveal yourself to others.
Yeah.
And there's so many times that in so many places that we're unwilling to be vulnerable and share that. And we think that we do have to like protect ourselves. But when we're talking about vulnerability and the ability to, like you said, to know what you know, to receive everything, to perceive everything, it's really about pushing down those barriers. Because when you actually aren't vulnerable, you can't um, you can't receive everything around you. You basically cut yourself off from your own awareness and from the awareness of what somebody else is choosing. So, and then you may ask, well, how do I be more vulnerable? What do you mean by pushing down your barriers? Just ask. Just like energetically ask to, like, think if you have like a wall up here, like just push your barriers down energetically. And it takes practice. It's almost like, I don't want to say pulling off a band-aid because that sounds like it hurts, but it's basically just removing like a post-it note from a desk or something, where you just take a little bit of the sticky off and you allow the barriers to come down. So vulnerability is a space where when you're being vulnerable, nothing can stick to you.
That's a good way to describe that.
Yeah.
And
So
again, you just to say, like, just to wrap back, like the willingness to be grateful for yourself and to just like acknowledge one thing that you're grateful for, is a great, easy way to start playing with vulnerability with yourself.
that's very true.
Right? It's an easy, doesn't have to take a long time. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful that I didn't wake up with bedhead. You know, I mean, like, I don't know. It can be that, I guess I'm making a joke. It can be really silly stuff. That, like, the willingness to do it with the small, silly, seemingly unimportant stuff can really make big shifts. And before you know it, you can easily do it with like really big things.
Well, yeah, because then the more willing you are to be vulnerable with yourself, the greater connection, or what we'd like to say communion, that you can have with another person. So in your relationship, you have to be willing to be vulnerable with yourself before you can actually have a vulnerable relationship with someone else.
Yeah.
So the allowance, honor, trust, gratitude, and vulnerability are the 5 components that, if you actually start playing with them and using them, can create amazing relationships in your life.
That's right. All right. So that is the show for today.
Yes. So if any of this like speaks to you and you would like to explore more possibilities with us, we would love to gift you an energetic awareness discovery session. It's valued at $500. There is a application to qualify, all you have to do is fill out the application, and we get back to you in like 24 to 48 hours to schedule your session. It's a 30-minute session. And to do that, to get the application, you just need to go to energeticsignatureformula.com. So basically, an energetic awareness discovery session is designed to get you present with where you are today and what it is that you would like to create now and in the future, and the things that may be holding you back from using your awareness, having that connection we we're talking about, and also being with your body. So if you'd like more space and freedom, and when you'd like to get empowered and get clear on the thing that's stopping you, then an energetic awareness discovery session is for you. So go to energeticsignatureformula.com and fill out the questionnaire, and we would love to have a chat with you.
But I'm just remembering that actually the way it really works is you go to energeticsignatureformula.com, enter your email, and it takes you to another page where you click on the big pink button to get the form for the application.
There you go. You still go to the same place. You just click on the pink button.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week for more talk about relationships.
Have a great one.
Hey, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the show.
Our target is to make your awareness easy to use and to acknowledge the power of not fitting in.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and share it with someone you know.
Why fit in when you were born to stand out?
Embrace your difference. Join the Misfit Squad.